Hey there, thanks for watching. I am super excited that Wendy Valencia started this collab for annual wins and fails for 2018. And I am also super excited to sit down and tell you about them. So jumping right in, here are my wins and fails for the year of 2018. So I have a list here, and I'm just kind of gonna I'm gonna start with all the wins, and then I'm gonna move on to the fails. So good news, bad news kind of thing. And I say overall, there were more wins than fails, which is a great thing. And these are going to include sort of personal and financial as well, so everything's kind of all mixed in together. So the first win I would definitely say is using the 12-week year framework. It kind of took some like strategizing and a little bit of effort. I would say when I was actively doing the 12-week year framework, I did it twice this year. It took about an hour to an hour and a half a week, plus whatever the activities were that or the tactics were that I were using to work toward these goals. But hands down, probably one of the best decisions I made this year. So would highly recommend, and I'm considering that a definite win. The second win was the trip that I took to Colorado. That was a personal win for sure. It cost, I think, all in, including airfare and hotel, and I think I rented a car. I want to say like $600. Worth every penny and more. So I forget how much I shared about this. In June of this year, the end of June, I went to Colorado to meet friends that I had connected with in the trip to Nepal last year, and we climbed a 14er, which for those of you who live in Colorado, you know this. 14ers are peaks that are 14,000 feet above sea level, and there are like, I think 54 of them, and there's this like sort of badge of pride, badge of honor for people who have climbed all of the 14ers in the state. So I climbed my first 14er, which was awesome, amazing, harder than I thought, but just tons of fun. And I think what made it so hard was people in Colorado live at 10,000 feet above sea level. We live here in northeastern, the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey. We live at 1,000 feet above sea level. So that like 9,000 feet change overnight was huge, and I did it as a quick weekend trip. I flew in on Friday night. I took the last flight in, took no time off work. It was a quick weekend. I flew in at 9 o'clock, landed at 11, got to my hotel by 1. Had to meet them by 3, so I got maybe 10 minutes of sleep, and I had no time to acclimate. So I'd been trying to drink water the night before, and I tried to rest up before I flew out. But it was still super challenging, like really challenging, because I was still acclimating to the altitude. So I went from 1,000 feet to 14,000 feet in the span of maybe 13 hours. So that was a little rough, but totally doable and totally like amazingly fun. Changed my whole perspective on life, because there's a quote that I read, because I had been following like 14ers Instagram accounts, like anything with a hashtag 14er, and somebody posted a quote, "The man at the top of the mountain didn't fall there." And I just kept thinking that. I was on like, as we were summiting, it was like the last maybe 100 feet or so, like I was like dying and crying because it was so hard, like quietly, privately to myself. It's like, you know what? You didn't fall here. You got here through hard work and persistence, and you know, you're crying, you're shedding tears, but this is something that you've worked toward, and you're here as a triumph, and it was really sort of memorable and important. So that was hands down the one of the biggest wins, so definitely the second win. And I think what allowed me to get there was using the 12-week year and really realizing that this was important to me. So that is the second win of the year. So the next 3 wins are all, 2 wins are to do with things that I've talked about. So the third win was coming back to YouTube. I had been kind of on and off for almost all of 2018. It was toward the last third that I really came in and started focusing on it and making videos weekly again. I kind of, with the 12-week year, I had made them on and off, but in September of this year, of 2018, I was like, I'm going to recommit, like I'm going to go all in as much as I can on this. So that was a huge win, huge decision win. The fourth win was going back in on eBay, which is something that I kind of kept up, but I decided like, hey, I'm really gonna focus on this. So that was a huge win as well. And the fifth win is on a personal level. In April of this year, decided to go jump on back into the online dating world, which I kind of been sort of circling for a while, but hadn't really committed to. And then April came around, and I was like, let me just go all in. So on that, so I did, and I would say I really used that. I was very strategic. I used the same 12-week year framework, which I hadn't really applied to my personal life as much in terms of changing behaviors and being specific in the behaviors that I was trying to cultivate. So for me, that means cultivating qualities in myself that I want in a partner. So those are things like consideration, generosity, compassion, kindness, communication, these kind of qualities that are always good, but work especially well in a relationship. So these are things that I would specifically set out each week. Say, I want to cultivate the quality of, say, humility. How am I going to do that? I want to cultivate the quality of gratitude. How am I going to do that? So having very specific tactics that you use to get to this way, and saying, I want to consider myself, I want to be a grateful person. I want to exhibit, I want to be an appreciative person, because that's the type of person that I want to attract into my life. And that was a huge, huge, huge win. And that really worked out well. And that's something that I'm hoping to do even more of, using the 12-week year, which I'm going to be jumping back into in January. I'm excited to share how I'm going to be doing that and the things that are going to be on my 12-week year framework. And again, I will say it is a lot of, it takes a lot of effort, but the rewards are definitely in there. So those are my 5 wins, and I will move on now to the fails portion of this video. So in terms of fails, and I can't even call them fails because they're definitely just opportunities for learning, but at the time they were pretty significant, and they definitely felt like pretty big knocks. So the first fail would be in February of this year. I was released from the job that I had had for 2.5 years previous. And I will say, again, this job from beginning to end was hands down my favorite job that I've ever had. I learned the most, I worked with the best people, and from the first day that I started to the last day that I was there, I felt that I was meant to be there, that I was learning new things, that I was meeting great people and working with genuinely good people, which has not always been the case. Like, I have worked for some doozies in terms of coworkers and bosses. Every single person I met at this company was fabulous, and I have not one bad thing to say about them. So when the time came, and I kind of knew it, like, when things like that are coming, they had released, I think, like a third of my team. They were sort of restructuring internally as well. So I went on this trip to Nepal in December, and when I came back, most of my team was gone. I was like, all right, I see where this is going. So I'd kind of been looking a little bit, not really. It was more preparing myself internally for what was coming. And so when it came, I was emotionally prepared, not so much. I mean, financially, I just wasn't. But I was able to get through it using, and I will put a link to that down below because this was super helpful, the job affirmations, which is also a very popular video on this channel. And I just went right back into it. I'm like, I know what I need to do. I know the steps I need to take to get to where I need to go. Let me just jump right in. So what could have been a huge fail, well, it was kind of a difficult situation, turned out to be a good situation, because I ended up in a new position within 6 weeks. I had a job offer, and it was making more than I was making before, which was huge. So that was the first fail of the year. So it wasn't really that bad at all. The second fail of the year was, and they're two kind of being on the same of the same ilk. The first one was not having a clear side hustle plan, and the second one is not being realistic. So those are number 2 and 3. So not having a clear side hustle plan, I realized something in coming back to doing a monthly written budget. So I had done a written budget throughout the whole year, every month, which hasn't always been the case, because in my financial situation, it was really easy. It's been really easy for me to get discouraged because I went from having a goal of getting out of student loan debt to having now a bigger goal of paying off the house I'm living in. So that was really challenging because it went from this very tangible thing that I could see, like see being realistic, to this huge. So I went from like $20,000 student loan debt to $150,000 house payment. So house loan that I'm trying to get rid of. So that took some adjusting, and I'm still adjusting now. What I realized through that process of monthly budgeting is that right now this is status quo. Like, this is like I'm maintaining at this point. And if I'm going to make any forward motion, I'm going to have to hit it on the side hustle and increase my overall skills and their value in the marketplace, which is, just obviously something you should be doing. But the biggest thing is having a clear side hustle plan, and that number 3 is being realistic about what I can accomplish in a year and the level of effort it's going to take. So those were kind of things that I failed at because I feel like I had these like big giant goals, like get rid of my $15,000 loan in a year, which I could do if I weren't overextended on the house payment. And that's a big thing that like is really frustrating, which I know a lot of people are in this situation, but it's just kind of an ongoing negotiation and balance. So again, just having a clear plan and being realistic, but also being willing to put forth the level of effort it's going to take and the amount of effort it's going to take to get to where I want to go. So those are my wins and fails for the year of 2018. And kind of looking them over, I'm like, okay, so we see these fails, and what are we going to do to kind of like account for them or to adjust in 2019. So that is going to be my plan going forward. I am hoping to have at least one more video out this year before we hop into 2019. And I'm looking forward to that. And I thank you again for watching. I will list all the other contributors in the info box. And again, I thank you so much for watching, and hope if you haven't already and you would like to, that you would subscribe. I would love for you to come along on this journey. Thanks again, and I will hopefully see you soon.